Thanks for the reminder. Hi, everyone. So thanks for coming to today's SIP community call. Today is 19th of August, and we'll just have a open floor discussion. We'll have more topics in the following weeks, but today's going to be an easier one, and everybody will be have opportunity to bring up anything they want to share or concern, any SIP related stuff. So just for those who haven't been here before, so SIP calls is about giving the community having a transparent way of updating everything about SIP that's going on. So we'll give you a top level view what's going on in the SIP world. And also it's a place where you can share your idea and share your proposal, engage in interest, whether something the SIP that you have in mind is something that community wants or needs. But also we host discussions that can really improve stacks, whether it's from a mining perspective or token standardization perspective, or last week we had the derivation path, which are all quite critical to decentralize stacks and also to improve stacks and unlock more functionalities. So yeah, I think I included this in last week one, but I'll just go very briefly. SIP is a document that basically lays out the processes and all the standard to do with any particular topic, but it's all surround improving stacks, and they live on GitHub, and they go from a process of an idea to different stages of review, and from getting included, ratified, and voted on, or depending on the criteria of the particular SIP. But like something like Stack 2.1 is very will involve a lot of stakeholders, impacts a lot of stakeholders, so it needs to be voted on. So just give everybody an update where sort of the SIPs in pipeline that sort of towards a later stage. So things being accepted, SIP 13 that needs to be reviewed by the consideration advisory boards, which we have now. We just need to sort of activate them, and then they can review this SIP 13, which is to do with the semi-fungible token standard. And I think they are also trying to utilize that in the ecosystem DAO that Marvin is working on. And a little bit down the line, we have activation in progress. Basically, these are ready to be ratified. And SIP 16 came up last week, quite interestingly, that the activation criteria was coming up. We only had 1 week left. So we had to gather, trying to find that the criteria was to find 10 contracts that implemented this SIP 16 not in the contract, but probably Jude has a better way to clarify that. But you to deploy SIP 16 for the metadata standard. So we have 16, 18, 19, all sort of waiting to be activated. 18 is already live, I believe, in Hero Wallet. So now if you go to any marketplace or do anything, you need to sign a message. Yeah, and big shout out to Dartman, who really helped to find the 10 contract for SIP 16. So yeah, it's amazing. He's just a community member, and who was able to facilitate and help when other people are really busy or on holiday. So it's amazing to see community coming together, helping each other. So yeah, big shout out. So SIPs that in draft stage. The interesting ones such as Frigger's one, and I already seeing comments from Thomas, fungible system that's gonna build a library that includes in microstacks that implement the SIPs. He's got some questions about it, so I'll let Frigger answer that. Some documentation stuff to do with where the steering committee names live. So that one will be solved. We're inviting more steering committees to the panel. So because now we've got enough cabs, so now Jude should be able to step off cab and join steering committee, and we're going to find a few more along to go with Jude. And that, yeah. Was that Jude?
I'm free.
Yeah, you'll be like you'll hold the master key and you let people do the work, the technical stuff. Well, you're gonna see all the SIPs coming through anyways, right? So
right, I can still like offer feedback, but it would never be binding because I'm not on the cab for the technical.
Yeah, I feel like that process. I think if everybody saw it like really later on, I feel like, I mean, we can touch on later, but like I'm sure people will probably need to see the SIP in its early stage as well as later stage, right? It wouldn't just be like you see review once at such late stage, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be involved in to the greatest extent possible just to help in general. But insofar as like, if there's ever a disagreement though between like something I say and what one of the cabs says, I don't believe that the steering committee has the power to override the cab unless there's an extreme case.
Okay, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, let's figure that out when that happens.
Yeah. And also I've tidied up. So we have all the videos now for all the past 8-9 weeks. This is a nice session. So we have all the videos going back to the days when you guys met up, the first ever conversation about stacks mining and trying to get together to figure out a solution. So all the videos are live, all the videos are linked in the meeting notes on GitHub. So if you go to GitHub, SIP, under SIP, you'll see an issue, which is a meeting agenda, weekly SIP meeting agenda. There is where all the notes from every week, all the useful links from every week, and all the video linked, you'll find it there. So I'm trying to direct people to GitHub because that's the most, that's a place where we like to encourage people to get to, as well as the forum, Stacks forum. So a little bit about the early stage stuff, derivation part, that's an ongoing conversation, mining centralization, I'll touch on that later. Next week, we'll have Maddie. So yeah, and also I'm trying to get Ryan on to see whether he wants to talk about any early stage improvement ideas that he has, whether he wants to share, maybe he can gauge interest, whether that's something useful. So yeah, that's that. A little very quick sort of semi-SIP, not really SIP, but on Stacks forum, a couple of things that came up. Hyperchange name going to be changed to subnet. There's a very interesting conversation about the node syncing thread on Stacks forum, and I think that's important because the nodes are, even I want to spin up a node. I'm trying to figure out how, and that will help Stacks to be more secure if more people run nodes. Yeah. So previous weeks we touched on mining, SIP 2.1, Stacks 2.1, Taproot, mining analysis, caps, derivation path stuff. So if these topics are interesting to you, yeah, please join the SIP call regularly. So yeah, so I'm just going to leave the floor now open to people to bring up anything they have. Yeah.
I just wanted to chime in and say great job. I was looking through that GitHub issue and it really summarizes everything and puts it all in one place, which is great when we're trying to find places to direct people. So great job with what you're doing. And I've got nothing else to add, but happy to be here.
Thanks. Yeah, I try to update it every week after this call, or at least latest by Monday. So yeah, it's just a place where people can go to. And I did think about whether I should post all the videos on Stacks forum too. But then I think the more we post it on Stacks forum, the less I'm encouraging people to go to GitHub. So I'm sort of trying to incentivize by posting the videos links in GitHub to get people to go to GitHub a little bit more. I don't know, just a trialing. Anything else? Actually, I do actually some conversation came up yesterday, Jude. I thought might be worth bringing it up. It was from someone in the community actually, about sort of more the communication in terms of Stacks 2.1 or even the previous Stacks 2.05. They are both SIPs essentially. I think there was really a minor comment about I think that the person felt like it is a hard fork, and I think he was he only knew that later when somebody told him. I think it wasn't as clear to him sort of from a communication perspective. So I thought I'll bring that up in this session, see what you think.
Sorry, what was the question this person had about what being a hard fork?
I think it's more like about whether this is a hard fork or whether he was told about this is a hard fork and the implication of it.
No, I'm sorry, what is this in this case?
Stacks 2.1 upgrade.
Oh yes, that's very much a hard fork.
Yeah.
It has to be. We're adding new keywords to Clarity. There's no way for old nodes to continue to process Stacks blocks. So
yeah, I think it's just that maybe he felt like maybe that wasn't as sort of on the front as he probably imagined, and he didn't know it was a hard fork until someone told him it was a hard fork. He probably thought it was just some sort of soft fork or update. I don't know, but yeah, don't know what you think about that from a communication perspective.
yeah, that's something we could probably address on the comm side of the foundation to explicitly call it a hard fork. The I guess like the difference though between a hard fork in the Stacks community and like other chains that do hard forks is we try to make sure that hard forks only activate through a vote from invested stakeholders. So the term I've been using for this is network upgrade, but I mean, perhaps that distinction is not really that important in practice. At least in terms of people understanding what's going on.
Yeah. I think for him, it's more about knowing what's going on, because most of the people they are not in. I know you guys are in basically every week talking about it, but like most of the people in the Stack community, they're just like going about their day business, and they only these sort of topic only comes to light every once in a while. So yeah, I think anything you think appropriate that can clearly and transparently give them the a summary, I think that will help them to have sort of align the expectation, I think.
Yeah, I agree. This is actually something that we're doing right now. There's a draft circulating internally about the 2.1 announcement coming from the foundation that I hope we're going to get out, if not today, then sometime early next week. I'll make sure we use the words hard fork to make sure that people understand they will need to upgrade their nodes.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably more nuanced than that, right? Because maybe it's a hard fork, but maybe it's not like a very, I don't know how sort of how risky is this hard fork? Maybe there's a spectrum, maybe. I know like Segwit is also a hard fork. And also like many people even I'm hearing from
Actually,
right now.
Segwit was not a hard fork. Like,
Oh, it's a soft fork.
yeah, if you run an old Bitcoin node, it will still work. And it will still recognize SegWit transactions. The reason for that is that the SegWit transactions to an old Bitcoin node just look like anyone can spend transactions with basically like no WAP script SIGs.
Yeah.
But of course, miners are all upgraded, so they're not going to just let you spend them.
Yeah, but I think the conversation came up in the Bitcoin community that although it's a soft fork, right? But unless you actually update your node to have all the full witness data history and all that stuff, you don't, if you just run an old one, you don't really see those witness data. Therefore, you are not 100% verifying everything yourself, kind of thing.
No, you're not. That's true. You're only verifying legacy transactions. But the reason why it would be called a soft fork in this case is because the old nodes continue to be able to validate blocks.
Yes.
Whereas in this case, it would be a hard fork because a Stacks 2.1 block would support modes of operation and types of clarity keywords that the Stacks 2.05 block validation logic does not recognize.
Yeah, yeah.
And like I guess that there's, and to answer your question just about safety, like the reason we do an on-chain vote before we execute any kind of hard fork is because we want to make sure that there's not significant contention with it first. You might imagine like a world in which, suppose someone proposed a SIP that got all the way to, okay, great, we're going to do a hard fork to do it, and we ran a vote, and it turned out like 10% of people hated it or something like that. While it could be the case that maybe the hard fork does get pushed through by miners, that's still not a satisfactory outcome, because now those 10% of users might just dump their stacks in the market, and that could cause the price to go down, or it could cause confidence to be lost in the system overall. The purpose of doing on-chain votes like via SIP12 that we do is mainly to make sure that the community is more or less on board with it first, and if there is any contention, we'll try to address that first. There has been some proposals. I think Ryan might have alluded to this in one of his threads, like, why are we even doing votes at all? They're so time consuming. Well, if we didn't do such a vote and we kind of just YOLO'd it and said, hey guys, look, hard fork, have fun. If there was contention, you would discover it via a chain split or via exchanges not listing your token or some other sorts of bad outcomes for the ecosystem. So we try to like strike a balance, I think, right now, where we accept that hard forks are risky endeavors no matter what you do, because it's a coordination game, getting everyone on board to upgrade at the same time. But we at least try to make sure that people want to have that upgrade in the first place. Like, even if there's not enough voting participation, that's still a sign that the hard fork shouldn't happen, because those people might not care enough to upgrade their nodes when the time comes.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for explaining that. Yeah, definitely.
I've got a follow-up question there. Would that mean that the moment the hard fork happens, is it a special moment in the network where it's more important that people run their own nodes?
I mean, you should run your own node all the time. I don't think there's like any point in time where it's more or less important to do that. But if you are running a node, you will want to know when the hard fork activates, so you can be using the latest version of the code by that point. Otherwise, you will not be able to process the chain going forward. Or worse, some other people, maybe a miner doesn't upgrade in time and they continue to mine blocks, and you accept those blocks, and you're now looking at a chain split in which you're seeing a transaction history that very few people accept as real.
Yeah, you won't want that.
No, it's so part of the reason why hard forks are risky is because like there really is a big comms game that has to be played. Like I know the foundation, like we reach out to all the exchanges we know list stacks, or for which we have contacts to do, so that they know when to upgrade. We schedule calls with them. We try to make sure that also people who run explorers and infrastructure whose contacts we have, we try to reach out to say, hey, look, this is going to happen. Please consider upgrading soon and consider voting. And there'll be a similar push for doing the vote itself for the community to go ahead and ratify it if they find the SIP, the text amenable to them, of course. But yeah, like this, it's very much like a community-wide effort to making a hard fork happen, precisely because there's this massive coordinated installation of the new node software, and that's why they take time, and that's also why they're risky.
Do you know any, because I know Bitcoiners do this. What about, I know Ethereum may be doing this way of upgrading everybody, trying to be really careful. Do you know, like other chains, do they actually do this, or do they just upgrade everybody's stuff because they got all the nodes centralized anyway, so they only need to ring up a few people?
I mean, if you run a centralized or quasi-centralized chain, it's certainly a lot easier to do a hard fork.
Yeah.
The way that Ethereum does it, if memory serves, is they will they have a large, like, all hands developers call, for which they kind of, amongst the participants on that call, they figure out whether or not the hard fork should happen, and if so, what block height and what rules. How exactly that all gets decided is still unclear to me, but I'm sure someone out there knows. I'm just not plugged into the Ethereum scene really well, so I don't really know how exactly they decide that. From there, though, I think there's a matter of, like, you know, maybe you need to get wallets on board, maybe you need to get exchanges on board. With stacks, at least, like, we're not dropping compatibility, or we're not dropping support for any existing types of transactions or blocks. So at least in our case, wallets don't have to upgrade. Like, they would just miss out on new modes of using transactions. But I mean, the ones that they use now continue to work. So I guess, like, that's one big difference between us and Ethereum. We don't really need to have, like, wallet authors don't really need to be part of the coordination process. They can certainly vote with their stacks, but no action is needed on their part either way, insofar as facilitating it. Exchanges and miners are the other two big players besides users. The miners, we have announced at stacks.org, by which we would send cryptographically signed emails to folks who are subscribed. Anyone can subscribe to it. It's completely open. It's a Google group. That's how we announce, like, you know, hey, look, this SIP has activated. It passed with this many votes. This hard fork will happen at this block. Please download this release and install it and run it and make sure it's up and running before this height. Otherwise, you risk being on a chain split. I don't really know that much about how the likes of, like, BSC or Solana do their upgrades, their hard forks. I would imagine it's probably a similar process in principle, but maybe there are just fewer nodes they have to talk to make it happen. In systems like Tezos, some of the consensus rules, not all of them, but some of them are a smart contract themselves. So you could execute, like, a hard fork just by voting to upgrade the block validation rules smart contract code, which has happened at least once. So at least there's that. Like, that's certainly a possible future we might build towards.
One thought I had there, though, is I think in this case, wallet providers may have to do a little bit just because of the upgrade to the POX contract. Is that correct?
This time around, yes. If your wallet does stacking at all, then you'll need to upgrade to use the new POX contract. But that's literally a one-line change. All you have to do is just change the name of the contract you're using.
And then coming back to the discussion earlier, just about the idea of a hard fork and everything else, wasn't there like a planned cadence or like an idea of, like, how things were going to go after this upgrade?
That's a goal. I don't know yet how long that cadence will be. We have historically done it once a year ever since the original Blockstack system was launched back in 2016. Every December, usually, there'll be a new version with new rules. One of the motivations actually for adding a token at all was to be able to measure the sentiment around adding new code and adding new rules. Like, Munib even talks about it in the forum post back in, like, 2017 when the token was announced. And now with SIP 12 style voting and going forward, better systems like the one that we're using now for Stacks 2.1, and also the long-term plan to use a smart contract to facilitate this in general, the token is very much a critical component of measuring sentiment analysis for new types of rules. That said, like the cadence, there is no like ecosystem-wide cadence per se. The cadence really comes from the maintainers of the reference implementation. The README doesn't say it yet, but like once a cadence could be agreed upon, the README would be updated to say like the people who maintain this will submit a SIP to the community for a hard fork every X months. But that's, you know, if someone else wanted to write a SIP for a hard fork, they could certainly do it, and the community could certainly vote upon it. Like the people who maintain Stacks blockchain are not the only people who are capable of maintaining Stacks blockchain, for sure. Like if Trust Machines, let's say, or even like a lone developer had a really good idea for a hard fork and was able to get community buy-in, then absolutely, like a SIP with that hard fork could go through if the community did indeed want it. If that happened and it wasn't coming from the core developers on the Stacks blockchain repo, we would certainly support it and we would merge the change in. So our node implementation at least was compatible with theirs.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I love how it is open and it's available for people to do so, because I think, you know, you never know where your good ideas are going to come from. And if everybody's on board, why not try something new? I mean, I'm totally on par with that. It was actually making me think back to SIP 11, where we were describing like catastrophic blockchain failures and like procedures and things like that. And it made me wonder if maybe, you know, what was there anything that could be done to get that over the finish line just as like an idea, or is there a better way to structure it to kind of or kind of wait for what this cadence and what some of these future features might be for network upgrades in general, because they're kind of two different topics, but it does cover like hard forks in a different light, and just want to make sure like comms would be aligned there.
Yeah, sure. So so the SIP process ultimately describes what code goes into any implementation of the Stacks node, like because it describes what a Stacks node needs to do to be considered a Stacks node. The fact that there is now a single reference implementation does not preclude the existence of others. And the cadence is something that maybe the core developers of the reference implementation might agree to, but it is not something that the community has to agree to at all. Like they could tell us to pound sand if they didn't like it, and we would. Like, we can't force you to run software. That if the community wanted to run a different version of the Stacks node or submit a SIP and get it ratified, they would certainly be able to do so. But in all cases, the code that makes up the implementation or implementations of Stacks nodes is subordinate to the SIP process. The only contact point right now between the SIP process and the running blockchain is the activation sections of hard forks, which require an on-chain vote right now. So as long as we know what the current chain implementation is, and as long as we know like what contract or what rules to use to go and validate and determine whether or not a hard fork is slated to happen, as long as those are well understood by the whole ecosystem, then really anyone can submit hard fork proposals and implementations at whatever cadence they feel like.
Got it. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, I listened to a couple of really good podcasts about sort of how the Bitcoin consensus are reached, and it is super interesting. Like, yeah, like Jude said, you can have like people voted, but then they don't upgrade. And which sort of truth do you want to go along with? Like, that's
an excellent question. That's something that we're trying to address, not in 2.1, but shortly after 2.1, in time for the next hard fork, if there is one. And that would be to make it so that there would be like a canonical smart contract that would be used to or at least looped in as part of the activation section for the next hard fork. And if the conditions are met for the next hard fork, it would cause the default implementation of the node to just halt at the block height of the hard fork. So that way, like if you did vote to upgrade and if you did vote for the upgrade, but you did not yourself upgrade, your node would just stop.
What's the equivalent in Bitcoin?
I don't think there is one.
Yeah, that's so it'll be next year. This,
I think so. There's a pull request open for it right now. It's just the person who submitted it, Pavitra, just doesn't have time to currently iterate on it because she's working on subnets.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one for discussion, I think. Yeah.
I know that Bitcoin has the on-chain voting mechanism from miners, but it wasn't always that way. If you look at how like P2SH was ratified, that was actually a hard fork that was voted for. I remember just looking through Jeff Garzek's old patch for it. I think it activated in somewhere like 2012 or so. It was like 80%, I think, of miners had to vote to support it. And when the rules took effect, it really was a breaking change in the consensus validation. I guess that maybe read some people the wrong way. That may or may not have helped precipitate the current miner activated soft fork procedure that Bitcoin uses. But certainly, like, you know, every community is going to find whatever mechanism that they want that suits their needs to do these sorts of breaking changes. And I suspect that we're going to iterate on it a few times before we find one that we're all happy with, just like how Bitcoin did.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, maybe I'll, if anybody else, Gary, do you want to mention anything?
I've got loud kids. I'm listening. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, in that case, I'll maybe move on to the sort of the next few slides. So just sort of to give everybody an idea of what's coming, what I'm sort of doing in the near future and for the next few months as well. So yes, I'm currently assembling all the CAP members, going to provide guides to them to help them come together, activate the CAPs, invite more steering committees. And also I'm starting to liaise. Well, I went on a writer's room and they were talking about 2.1 upgrade in that meeting. Also, I think there is, I think like Jude said, I think the communication about 2.1 is coming up. So anything I can help on that front, Jude, or if you want to have a session about 2.1 specifically in the zip code, please let me know, or anything I can do to amplify 2.1. Maybe I can provide some quick slides, what these are, or if they already have in Stack Foundation, I'd be happy to share, or we can talk about it more, or maybe I can do some tweet threads about 2.1 with some pictures or whatever. So yeah, anything I can facilitate, please do let me know.
Yeah, we'll do. As soon as we hit code completion, I think that maybe I'll take you up on that then. But right now we all have our heads down, just getting ready.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so doing a few more other stuff on forum, on Stack Discord, on GitHub, all these places, sort of just trying to make the process more clear and streamlined around various platforms. So yeah, if you have any suggestions, feel free to let me know. So yeah, and Marvin is working on ecosystem DAO, and I actually at that point maybe Jason knows a little bit more because I did post a message in their little team channel about whether what they're thinking in terms of utilizing the ecosystem DAO in the SIP voting process. Do they just want to do it next year, or do they want to try out this year alongside with the current voting mechanism? I believe last year was you have to go to the pool to ask them to vote on your behalf. But I think this year, as far as I know, I think Jude mentioned, correct me if I'm wrong, Jude, that if you're stacking with the pool provider, you can also vote directly now.
Yes, that's the plan. I'm sorry, I actually have to bounce. There's something that
okay.
I'm just gonna make you the host.
Okay.
Just on one note there, that another place that I would think I would mention, I would add things is in the official docs on the website. There, we recently added a page that talks about the SIPs and has links to the videos of the meetings and all these things. So there, it would be a good place to explain users how the voting process work, what's going to happen in the upgrade, and maybe more general things. Doesn't have to be specific for 2.1. We can add something for 2.1, but it's a good place to add information in general.
Yeah. Do you have the link to that?
Yeah, let me share it for you right now.
You share here or in DM, I'll make sure that's posted for everyone.
Yeah, just to circle back to the ecosystem DAO comment. I remember talking with Marvin and Mike a little bit, and Mike specifically, and I think this would definitely be a good fit for the vote, just because it opens up the ability to define more detailed ways to vote. Like, for example, like you were saying, if somebody's stacking with a pool, still being able to see that they had locked stacks, or what their vote power is going to be. A lot of that's really cool. If we have clarity on our side to do the voting contract, we can get really creative with that. There can be a lot done. The initial launch was just going to be basically the small group and a treasury, and then there was going to start to be some snapshot voting, and there were some other things kind of planned in for the other features of the DAO. But I don't know directly if that's in the plan, but I'd love to see it come together. So I think we'll let Mike update us when he gets back to us in that channel. But for everybody just listening to this, it's in the Clarity Lab channel on Stacks. It's one of the teams is where they're working on the ecosystem DAO, if you're interested.
Yeah. It'll be really interesting to try out this year. I would imagine only there's probably going to be like coordination and the sort of alignment with the dates, and I believe like most of the core devs thinks they're gonna go with the current mechanism that Jude talked about just now. So I think there probably needs to be more direct communication if the ecosystem DAO implementation was going to take over that existing mechanism, or to go alongside with it. And there probably can, but I'm just speaking for myself. I'm assuming that can then go along with some instructions for the partners to sort of explain to them whether you want just the ecosystem DAO method, or you want the both, and you want to trial both. If you want to trial the ecosystem DAO, then these are the ways to do it. Like, these are the instructions.
Yeah, there's definitely some additional coordination that needs to happen there. So I think the path forward would be just to not block the SIP voting in any way, just because this is a big upgrade. It's been coming for some time. We want to keep things moving.
Yeah.
I do think that such documentation could be created, just like, as I'm sure more resources will be created, just like there was a website for the SIP 12 vote that was able to tally the information and give people more info on how to participate. So I think we're going to see more of that coming out, and it could end up being a part of this, if that's the correct place for it to be, or if it's supposed to be something else. I think it would just be a matter of making sure that's clearly documented, and well, fingers crossed we'll see some overlap there.
And because I'm hearing already they are starting to sort of put out or have plans for 2.1 communication publicly about what it is and stuff like that. Not quite sure about the exact voting mechanism, communication to the public, how that's going to take shape, why and when. But I think they are starting early to coordinate the communication. So I think whether in this forum, in this community call, or there's the writers' room where the different sort of marketing people come together from the big entities, where they coordinate a little bit. So maybe that's a place where you can get a little bit more info as to the details about what might be communicated, or maybe coordinate with them how you like for that thing to be communicated. then I think everybody can help each other that way.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so just move on. Yeah, so the ways to get involved is anything to do with the SIP process is to go on Stacks forum, you use the GitHub, all the issues or pull requests or any that type of stuff, SIP related or drafts. And if you're interested to be a consideration advisory board or SIP editor, yeah, please feel to reach out. And I'll just talk a little bit since we have a few people that might not have heard it before. So the SIP, I'm currently looking for consideration advisory board and the SIP editors, but prioritizing the consideration advisory board, so-called CAPS. So that will be part of the really key part of the SIP reviewing process and to help the whole community vet anything that comes through the door. And it's from different angles: economics, diversity, technical, governance, and ethics. And these are the people we currently have already. We have 17 individuals. We have 4 CAPs ready. And we just need to look for more on ethics CAPs. So if you're interested in any of these CAPs, please feel to reach out to me. Yeah, so yeah, let me know if you're interested, if I missed you out, or if you think someone's suitable for these CAPs. So just let me know, but it's looking good now. So yeah. So as I say, I'm assembling all the Avengers in stacks. That's all. Thanks, guys. Anything else, guys? All good?
For those new CAPs, did you need any help setting up the like bylaws or anything in the repos, or how was that part going?
I've written a blog.
Oh, nice. No, I was saying bylaws. So like basically when we set up the governance CAB the first time, one of the things that we had to do was come together as a group and decide this is the criteria that we're going to use to evaluate the SIP.
Yeah.
So that would probably be the next step since you
Yeah.
have all these groups assembled, which by the way, great job. You know, it's good
100%.
names in here. But when you're getting to that point, or if you need any help with how we done it in the governance CAB, just let me know.
Yeah, amazing. That would be great. Yeah, I definitely need a bit more input on that. But currently what I'm doing is I'm writing some sort of guide. So if you were to set up a new CAB, here's a Medium post about that. And also the people currently, like what's required, what's expected, what sort of time commit, and what sort of experiences that we're looking for to be on the CAPs. So I'm sort of putting them down as a little blog posts. And also, yeah, like here are the things to do. So for example, when you propose a new CAP, you do need, part of the process is to do the bylaw or the criteria. So yeah, and sort of who is recording, like the chairperson, you need to have a chairperson keeping all the notes and stuff. So I'm sort of trying to get these details down on paper so that I can just send out to people and they can just use it. And also it helps like for future references, like any future CAPs coming along, any future CAP members that just join, any time of the year, they have documents that they can just use.
Yeah, I think that's amazing because I know we have some of it kind of in different places in GitHub, but I don't know if there's one clear place for the whole thing. There's examples, but there's not documentation or instructions. So I really like that. If you need a second set of eyes before you publish, just let me know. I'll be happy to jump in and take a look because I've done it.
Thank you. I'll definitely use you. Cool. Yeah, thanks everyone. If nothing else, I'll give the day back to you. Thank you for your time. Next week. Oh, I didn't announce. Oh my God, sorry. I didn't announce. Next week we have. Can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah, still here.
Yeah.
Oh, next week we have Maddie coming on. He's going to talk about the mining proposals. So this thing that he's going to propose came out of a Stack Forum discussions. So he made a, I can't remember who it was. I think maybe Ryan or whoever. Anyway, there's one big thread where a lot of people chimed in about improving the miners' decentralization in Stacks, because as we know, currently we only have between 5 to 9 miners. I think since the analysis report came out, we had a little bit more, but we would like to improve that. So there has been very intense Stacks Forum discussion on paper, and also 2 real-time meetings like this where they figured out, well, not figured out yet, but they definitely try to come up with ideas how they can improve that and lower the barriers to entry for the smaller to medium miners whilst keeping the profitability for everybody. So yeah, I think and so we have something coming out of it, potentially turning into 1 or 2 proposals. So I think next week gonna be a presentation of an early sort of look how that proposal might look like. So I don't think it's gonna happen this year. Like it could get it will get turned into SIP probably. But yeah, in terms of activating it, probably not this year, as far as I understand. But at least it's a good one to participate and join the discussion, because miners are super important, a very critical point where we want to decentralize as much as possible. So Maddie's coming on next Friday, so I hope you guys tune in. Okay, guys, let you go. Talk to you later. Thanks for coming.